What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Clutch Team Podcast channel. Today, we are gonna make a tier list of the mainline Zelda games.
Welcome to Clutch Team Podcast, your one-stop podcast.
Starting off this list, we got The Legend of Zelda, released in 1986 for the NES. This was the very first Zelda game, a 2D adventure game where you had the freedom to go where you wanted and you had to find all these hidden secrets. So I used the guide, and I recommend you using the guide if you try to go back to that game because you're probably going to be pissed off because it's very tedious in that way. But it was fun. Would I recommend you going back? Probably not. It didn't age well, and for the fact that it was the very first Zelda game and where it started all, I'm gonna put it under okay. It's just okay. Next on our list, we have Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link, released in 1988. This game moved away from the original formula and made it a side-scroller with a lot of platforming, and it just didn't feel like Zelda to me. I don't recommend this game to anybody, so it gets the not good tag. Next on our list, we have Link to the Past, released in 1992 for the SNES. This game was a huge step up from The Adventures of Link. It went back to the open map. It introduced bottles, heart pieces. You had to get 3 things to get out the Master Sword, which became a staple for the series. I believe that without this game, Ocarina of Time wouldn't have been Ocarina of Time. Twilight Princess wouldn't have been Twilight Princess. In all honesty, this is probably my favorite 2D Zelda game, and I strongly recommend, if you haven't played this game, definitely play this game if you love Zelda. With all that said, we are putting this awesome game in the awesome tier. If this was a 3D Zelda, I would have probably put it one of the best, but I prefer a 3D Zelda, so this goes under awesome. Next, we got Link's Awakening, released in 1993 for the Game Boy. This was the first handheld game in the Legend of Zelda series. This game was pretty cool. It kind of gave a different vibe for everything. You didn't have the Triforce, you didn't have Zelda in this game, and it kind of felt like a dream. It was kind of surreal feeling. You had Mario characters in this game. I recommend you guys play the original, but I strongly recommend you pick up the remake, which made some quality of life improvements, and the visuals were pretty cool, what they did to it. So we are going to put Link's Awakening in the awesome tier. Next on our list, we have The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, released in 1998 for the Nintendo 64. This was my first Zelda game that I played. I was 7 years old, and the first game I ever finished. The first Zelda 3D game went back to the great original formula of Link to the Past, one of the best games of its time with its amazing music. I absolutely recommend anybody that didn't play this game to pick it up. Play the 3DS version, the Ocarina of Time 3D. That one is excellent because the graphics got better from the original. And I strongly think Nintendo should just port this over to the Switch. This would be amazing. Like, original fans would definitely buy this game. With all that said, I feel like you guys already know that I'm throwing this game in the top of the top, the best tier. Next on our list, we have The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, released in the year 2000 for the Nintendo 64, a sequel to Ocarina of Time. This game was fantastic, and I definitely recommend playing it after Ocarina of Time. I don't know if people would like it as much if they didn't play Ocarina of Time. This game was excellent. It had 24 different masks that would turn Link into different forms, and each form would play differently. The only thing I didn't like about this game was how they had a time factor that you had to kind of schedule your gameplay, and I'm not really a fan of that. And the 3DS remake had better graphics, but they also messed up on a lot of the gameplay. Like, they made the swimming slower, and it was just weird. So with all that said, I think this game definitely belongs in the top of the awesome tier. Next on our list, we have The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, both released in 2001 for the Game Boy Color. This was one of those double releases that Nintendo usually does for Pokemon. These games were pretty cool handheld games. You could travel between the seasons, travel to the past, and it was just good games. We'll put these in the middle of the pack, good games. Next on our list, we have Legend of Zelda 4 Swords, released in 2002 for the Game Boy Advance as an inclusion for A Link to the Past port to the Game Boy Advance. This is a multiplayer Zelda that it's almost impossible to play now. You have to have a Game Boy Advance, you gotta have the link cables, It would be interesting if Nintendo tries to remake this for the Switch, but I don't see it being remade anytime soon. And this is just a weird... Zelda multiplayer games are kind of weird. If you want to play a Zelda multiplayer game, just play Super Smash Bros, you know? So let's just say it's smash or pass on the Zelda multiplayer games. So we're going to put this under the okay games. Next on our list, we have The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, released in 2003 for the GameCube. I wasn't a big fan of the change of art style. They went to like a cartoony kind of style this time. And at the time, I thought this game was going to suck for that. But boy, was I wrong. This game was awesome. You had an open sea where you would travel. The traveling of the first game was pretty slow, but the remake speeds that up, and the remake fixes a lot of problems that the first one had, and this game is a lot of fun. We're gonna put this game in the best games tier, but it's in the bottom of the best games tier. It barely made it. Next on our list, we have The Legend of Zelda The Minish Cap, released in 2004 for the Game Boy Advance. This was a cool game. It had a cool concept that you could shrink down to the size of an ant at certain spots, and all around I say it was a pretty solid Zelda game. So we're gonna put this game in front of the Oracle games, under the good games. Next, we have The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventures, released in 2005 for the GameCube. In this game, you could play by yourself or multiplayer, which makes more sense than just making a game multiplayer like the original 4 Swords. And this game was pretty solid. I would say middle of the pack. Let's just put it in middle of the pack. Next on our list, we have The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, released in 2006 for the GameCube and the Nintendo Wii. This is one of my favorite games. This game is amazing. This game scratched that Ocarina of Time itch. It worked off that Ocarina of Time formula, made it better. Ipana was great horse in this game. You could turn into a wolf, and all around this game is a lot of fun. Everybody definitely has to play this game. This game is going in the best games tier, so far in the top. Next, we have The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass, released in 2007 for the Nintendo DS. In this one, Nintendo goes back to the cartoony graphics of Wind Waker, packed with a whole bunch of DS features. This one is alright. It's fun if you just want a different type of Zelda game. I would pick it up and play it, but it's not something that I will rush to go play. Let's put it under the good tier, middle of the pack. Next, we have The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, released in 2009 for the Nintendo DS. This was a cool game. You get to play as Zelda. I just didn't like that that the train just doesn't fit nowhere in Hyrule. There should be no train in Zelda. This is just, it's too weird of a concept. I'm just gonna put this in the bottom of the good tier. It's a good game, you know, but like I said, bottom of good tier. Next, we have The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, released in 2011 for the Nintendo Wii. Nintendo released this game saying that it was the beginning of the story of The Legend of Zelda, and talk about hyping the fans up to know what happened in the beginning. This game split the gaming community. A lot of players liked it, a lot of players didn't like it. I personally liked it. I liked how we got to learn how the Master Sword was made. I liked the whole concept with flying the birds, but the sky did feel really empty. It kind of gave that empty Wind Waker sea feeling. The boss battles in this game were insane. Amazing boss battles. And for that, we are putting this game in the awesome tier. Next, we have The Legend of Zelda A Link Between Worlds, released in 2013 for the 3DS. This game was awesome. You had two different worlds, Hyrule and Lorule, and they added a new mechanism that you could stick to walls, which made it feel very different, and it just made the game awesome. Next on our list, we have The Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes, released in 2015 for the 3DS. This is like a goofy game that Nintendo kind of had more of a stylish approach to it. Multiplayer game, and you guys know what I said about multiplayer before. It's Super Smash or Pass, so this game is okay. We'll put it under okay. And finally, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, released in 2017 for the Nintendo Wii U and the Nintendo Switch. This game was massive. This game is amazing graphics. The horses are amazing. Weapon variety was great. The Sheikah Slate powers were great. Criticisms that I have for it is the story was very lackluster. The weapons just broke way too fast. Boss battles did not look good. They all look like clones from Calamity Ganon. And Zelda games are known for having amazing boss variety. Even with all this bad criticism that I have over this game is the top of the best tier list. And there you have it, gamers. This is the Clutch Team Podcast tier list of Zelda games. Thank you so much for everybody that watched the full video. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Comment and where you guys think I fucked up and where you would tier differently. Let's set a goal for likes. Let's say 1,000 likes. Hit that notification bell, and as always, stay clutch.